Good day, everyone. We are Group 8, and today we will be discussing the globalization of religion under the subject the contemporary world. So, by the end of this discussion, you should be able to 1. Identify the effects of globalization on religious practices, and 2. Determine the relationship between religion, global conflict, and global peace. Religion and globalization are deeply connected. To understand this, we must see how authority works in different religious contexts, from formal institutions like churches to everyday believers. Religion also serves as a boundary maintaining force, meaning it helps define and preserve the identity and beliefs of a community, especially amid global change. Two major thinkers, Roland Robertson and Peter Bayer, were among the first to explore religion's role in globalization. They said globalization can be understood through three key ideas. Number one, it's an extension of Western modernization across nations. For instance, how Western culture and values spread through media, education, and religion. Number two, societies are viewed as nation states, each with distinct boundaries and religious identities. Number three, religious revivals often emerge as a reaction against modernity. For example, when people turn back to traditional beliefs to resist cultural change. Globalization affects religion in many ways. First is the rise of religious nationalism. Second is the return of religion into public life. Third is the proliferation of international terrorism. And lastly, the increase in personalized individual religiosity. Nationalism often mixes with religion. Some countries base their laws or policies on religious beliefs. For example, certain nations have state religions where political identity is tied to faith. This can strengthen unity, but also creates division between religious and non religious citizens. In today's world, religion isn't just about rituals or sacraments anymore. It now influences politics, activism, and social movements. Examples include Catholic liberation theology and religious fundamentalism, where religion becomes the core of people's daily lives and moral choices. Sadly, globalization has also contributed to religious extremism. Some extremists believe violence fulfills God's will, using religion to justify acts of terror. This is where fanaticism and parochialism comes in. Extremism means holding extreme religious or political beliefs. An example of religious extremism can be seen in the Israel Palestine conflict. Some extremist groups in Israel believe that, according to the Bible, God gave them the land of Palestine, and they use this belief to justify territorial control and violence. However, not all Israelis or Jews share this view. Many advocate for peace and coexistence. This shows how religious texts can be misused to support extremist actions. Now, parochialism means being narrow minded or limited to one's local or religious views, refusing to accept others. Example of parochialism is seen in the group led by Apollo Kiboloi, who claims to be the appointed Son of God. His followers believe that only their group can achieve salvation. This kind of exclusive belief system shows parochialism because it promotes a narrow, close minded view that separates them from other religions and the wider community. At the same time, globalization has made religion more personal. Many people today practice faith individually through prayer, meditation, or online worship rather than just following institutions. This shows that even in a modern world, people still seek connection with a higher being.
Hello everyone, my name is Khalil Ignacio Milagan and I am going to continue the presentation with the second topic, which is going to tackle about the conflicts as well as the stages of conflict development in the globalization of religion. So let us start with conflict. Religion has always been one of the most powerful forces in shaping societies and worldviews. However, throughout history, there have been instances when religious scriptures and doctrines were used to justify conflict. And in those global conflicts, religious leaders and groups have interpreted sacred texts and doctrines to morally validate violence or political actions. For example, certain extremist groups claim to fight holy wars based on selective religious verses, even when the true teachings of their faith promote peace and justice. Conflicts tied to religion are not just about faith itself. They often involve deeper issues like politics, economics, privilege, power, and of course identity. Moreover, extremists take radical measures to impose their beliefs. Extremists kanang they take radical measures. Radic- what we mean by radical is that they try to impose their beliefs with strict and extreme effort. They go, they try to go on an extra mile just to have their beliefs spread throughout the society. While fundamentalists believe that society should return strictly to the literal words of sacred scriptures, fundamentalists, on the other hand, are those people that take take the words of the scripture strictly, word by word. Um, they they focus more on religious confirmation rather than the actual teaching or the essence of their faith. So more on they're more on conforming and submit submitting to the authority of that religion. Thus, religion in globalization can unite people through shared values, but it can also divide when misused for political or personal gain. Now let's move on to the stages of conflict development. When we examine how religious conflicts develop globally, we can identify several key stages. The first stage is the revolt against secularism, where religious groups reject the separation of religion and the state, demanding that governance follow religious laws. For instance, some nations have seen uprising calling for religious law to replace civil laws. The first stage implies that um, religion is above the state and the law. Therefore, the government should strictly follow kanang religious scriptures that the laws that we create should be based on doctrines. The second stage is the internalization of religious rebellion. This happens when a local religious conflict spreads beyond borders. For example, when movements in one country inspire similar uprisings in others through shared ideology or media influence. So, second stage is more on spreading the the ideologies and the beliefs of people. It goes beyond borders. It's like transcending boundaries. The third stage involves the invention of global enemies. Here, opposing sides create narratives of us versus them, framing other religions, governments, or even cultures as threats to faith. This fuels hatred and polarization. So the third stage means that certain social groups, religions, or nations that have different beliefs and laws are automatically considered as enemies or a threat to 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 your beliefs or your group. It's like it's like ethnocentrism, more but it's about faith rather than culture. So you automatically label other people as the bad guys. You put them under a negative light just because they have different views. Their beliefs differ from yours. And lastly, the fourth stage refers to the religious dimensions of the post-Arab Spring, where modern revolutions and political movements in the Middle East became entangled with religious motivations and divisions. So the post-Arab Spring is a series of pro-democracy and anti-government social and political movements, and this is about anti-authoritarianism movement that promotes democracy, freedom of speech, and of expression. And after after the Arab Spring, there have been different beliefs. This movement happened in the Middle East or in the Arab countries. And after this movement happened, mm, there have been various beliefs and ideologies simply because certain beliefs and ideologies can significantly affect the lifestyle of the people. That's why people should be always be wise in choosing their political and religious views. And now let us move on to the moral teachings as solutions. Despite the conflicts associated with religion, the great world religions actually share one core mission, which is to promote moral values and peace. Their teachings serve as tools to address the roots of conflict. For instance, the abatement of avarice means reducing greed and selfishness that often drive wars. Abatement means reduction, while avarice means greed. So it simply means we reduce greed, our selfishness, because those are the key factors that often lead to wars and misunderstandings. Second is the abhorrence of hatred. Abhorrence of hatred means we we despise hatred because it is negative and it causes negative impacts in our society. The abhorrence of hatred encourages forgiveness and empathy instead of anger and revenge. Third is the rejection of illusions. This reminds us to let go of pride and false superiority, which fuels discrimination and division. And by returning to these genuine moral principles, humanity can move away from religious conflict and toward understanding and cooperation. So, finally, the globalization of religion doesn't have to mean global division. It can be an opportunity for global unity. If we focus on the shared values of compassion, justice, and peace, we can attain global unity. So that's all in my part. Thank you.
Here we have the humanitarian assistance and faith-centered interventions. This highlights how religious organizations are actively involved in world issues. So ginatagaan diri og importansya ang role nga gina-play sa religion. So first, we will tackle about the humanitarian assistance. So humanitarian assistance help achieve peace by focusing on poverty reduction and economic equality. So mo ni lang goal para ma-reduce ang poverty and also sa economic equality. And here we can see sa left side sa picture makita na tong world vision. Mo na siyang example sa humanitarian assistance. Mo na ang ilahang logo. And it says here that life in all its fullness. So basically, this organization focuses sa kanang mga children. Like daghan man sila gi focus pero like naka-center most sa ilahang goal is para matabangan ang mga kabataan. So again, it is a Christian organization, so like related siya sa religion. And usahay ang kanina mga organization is mas mauna pa ni sila makatabang kaysa sa government. So aside sa humanitarian assistance, napod tayo faith-centered interventions. These are the efforts of religious organizations to mediate understanding and peace between conflicting groups or nations. So kibali manginlabot si religion or si mga religious na mga person or mga organizations para ma-solve ang mga conflicts sa nations or within the nation. So an example of this is katong conflict between sa US and Cuba. Like, tapos, na-resolve siya. Like, na sila conflict nga over 50 years na. Pero, na-resolve siya through the help of Pope Francis. Mao ni ang atong religious na figure sa example. So, like, ang gibuhat ni Pope Francis is naghimo lang siya og letter nga gi-address sa US President, which is si Barack Obama, and also sa President sa Cuba, which is si Raul Castro. Then, mo dayon to, na-realize nila, then, mo to ang grabe kataas na conflict nila na-resolve ra, which results to ang kaning mga prison nga like kaning si Cuba o si US nani sila yung mga prison sa each opposite countries. Like taraw ang sa US is na sila yung mga Cuban citizens nga na imprison sa US, and also si Cuban ay mga US citizen nga na imprison dito. So after na resolve ani through the help of Pope Francis is that moto na na-release ang ilahang mga katong mga napriso sa US is that ang US citizen nga naa sa Cuba na-release si Alan Gross, and also sa mga Cuban citizens nga naa sa US na imprison katong 5 intelligent agents na kuan pud sila na-release. So kabe ka ingani ka impactful ang religion, especially kaning mga religious person nga makatabang sila aron ma-resolve ang mga conflicts between countries. Next we have is religion and globalization. Globalization is the process of interaction and integration among people, companies, and governments worldwide. Sociologists like Roland Robertson, as seen in the picture na nasa left, recognize that this process isn't just about economics, it also affects religion. Globalization has caused the materialist, economic-focused view of the world to be overturned. It created an opportunity to see the global in cultural terms, including religion. Because, di ba, pag makadungog ta or like, musulod sa atong hunahuna ang globalization, ang nara sa atong hunahuna is economics and like politics, mga treaties, mga trade, ang ngana. Whereas, dili lang dira naka-center ang globalization, naka-touch pod ta sa religion, which is dako pod siya og impact. So an example of this is that the growth of social media allows religious leaders to connect with followers across continents instantly, turning local faith movements into global ones. This shows how culture, religion can now affect the global world as much as politics and economics do. So, pag-boom sa social media, dili lang ang politics o economics ang ni-boom pod, apil pod og boom ang religion. An example of this is katong newly canonized saint na si Saint Carlo Acutis na like through social media, like ginaspread niya ang word of God through vlogging. So mo ni siya ang first na millennial na saint. So makita nato ani nga like ang globalization isn't just about politics and economics. Apil po diriya ang culture, which specifically ang religion. Next, we have the debate over secularization. So first, let us define what is secularization. So secularization is the idea that as societies modernize, religion loses its importance in public life, power, and authority. So kibaling na-focus naman ta sa pag-modernize, like na-focus na sa technology, sa mga infrastructures, and so on and so forth. So mao na nga nawad-an na og pagtagad ang religion. So we have this original idea. Mao ni ang gitawag ng secularization theory nga if ang basic idea is that modernity equals less religion. As mo-modernize na ang isa ka country, isa ka society, malesen na ang religion or worse, mawala. So for example, the number of people regularly attending church in Western Europe has steadily dropped over the past century. So, ilang gibasihan katong sa Western Europe nga like na modernize ng Western Europe tapos ang mga ga-attend sa church is nibaba na pud siya. So, mo na ilang gi-generalize nga if more modernized, less religion na dayon siya. So, ang katong original idea or ang secularization theory gi-oppose sa new view which is the skepticism. So, skepticism over time, this theory was challenged because religion hasn't disappeared. In many parts of the world, and even in some public aspects of Western society, religion is still very powerful. So, there is a new view or sa skepticism, gi-emphasize diri nga wala ang religion. And in fact, mas powerful siya. So, as we can see in the picture, sa first na picture is nadira atong like different na faith pero one planet, like nagkaisa gihapon ang tanan para sa atong planet, para sa atong mother nature. And the second picture, we have this katong mga religious person na nagrally sila para ma-end ang corruption. Like even sometimes ma-feel nato nga nawala ang religion, but like feeling ra na nato na gihapon siya and is still very powerful. Like makita gihapon nato siya in other aspects. Here we have the two modern views on secularization. So first, we have the return of religion or post-secular society. The concept of a fully secular world is being replaced by a post-secular society na giterm sa philosopher which is si Habermas, kanang as picture on the left. So religion was once cast out of public life during the age of modernity. Now it's making a comeback to the public sphere. An example of this is like kanang mga politicians nga mag-open sila sa public nga nilang ginahimo na law or gina-propose nga guided ni siya sa faith, guided ni siya sa iya religion ingana. So gikan sa katong nawala na siya, ibalik siya sa public sphere, which is kanang bitaw makita na nato openly. So for number 2, we have the secularism as an active project. Secularization isn't just an automatic natural consequence of modernization. Instead, it's a result of social action. So, si secularization, dili siya dali. Kailangan gid mo siya i-push aron ma-realize siya. Unlike sa katong normal lang nga na-attach sa religion. Kay mo bitaw siya na-normalize na nga ang everything like sa law, mga ingana is dapat inline siya sa religion. Whereas the secularization is opposite. Wala siya naka-inline sa religion. So, secularism is an active project, a multifaceted movement by people governments, and organizations working to separate religion from the state and public institutions. So, if ma-realize gid ang isa ka, like, secularization, ma-realize siya, makredit gid pag-ayo ang mga efforts sa people, governments, or organizations kay again and again, dili-dali ang secularization. This is social action. Kailangan gid nimo siya i-push through para ma-realize siya. So, an example of this is kaning sa same-sex marriage na if religion lang gid atong basihan, dili gid siya tugutan sa religion kay opposed gid kaayo ang religion ani. So, in the field sa secularization is that gina-oppose man po niya, like gusto niya nga dili manginlabot sa religion sa state o sa public institutions. So, gina-push through niya through the help or through the efforts of the people, governments, and organizations para ma-realize ni. So, ni na sa other countries just like sa Thailand nga okay sila sa same-sex marriage. So, ang secularization again is isud kayo siya i-realize because ang normalize na nato is ang katong mo in line ta sa religion. So, if i-push through nato nga, like, walay labot ang religion, maglisod gid ta pag-ayo. So, kailangan og social. So, again, it is a social action. It is an active project na kailangan gid og grabe nga push para lang siya ma-realize. Now, let's move on to transnational religion and multiple localizations. So, first, we need to define what localization is. So, globalization means that a global phenomenon, like a major religion, is always changed and adapted when it reaches a new local place. It's a mix of global and local. So, from the word itself, globalization, it is derived from both the words global and local. So, it means like, if ang mga tao, like taraw, mga tao sa Pilipinas, ubalhin sila, like kinadaladala na nila ilang religion. And with that nga ginadala-dala nila ang sa local man nila nga religion, pagkabutan na sa lain sa global is ma-change na siya, na mauto or na madugang. Pero naagihapon ang essence, naagihapon tong local. So this section looks at two major research areas that show how religion is being reshaped by globalization. So one of the research agenda is the transnational studies. This is the link between religion and transnational studies, which looks at movements across nations. These emerged because of the large waves of immigrants or trans-immigrants, people moving from third world to first world nations since the 1990s. So, diba, we have tackled this in the past discussions, like ang mga third world like us, padto ta sa first world para makabenefit ta ani nga mga rich north. So, ang kuandria is, as I said, gaingna is, wherever moadto ang isa ka tao, ginadala-dala na niya iyang religion. So, an example here, we have the Simbang Gabi in Calgary. So, basically, ang kaning mga Simbang Gabi, mga Misa de Gallo is na lang siya sa Philippines. Like, ginabuhat na siya diri sa Philippines. But, kaning mga OFW na mga, like, diri sa Philippines, if mabalhin sila sa lain na countries, is like, ila po din gina-practice because naanad naman sila. So, ang local na activity, like kaning Simbang Gabi is, naabot siya sa lain country, which is global na. And, some may na siya yung mga changes, kay like, madungagan or makuhaan, like, magdepende na dito sa lugar. So, muna na gitawag nga localization. So, the other one, we have the research agenda 2, which is the religion, culture, and the secularization debate. So, the interface between religion and culture and how this affects secularization. So, the more religion expresses itself publicly through culture, example through art, music, or clothing, the harder it is for secularization to fully succeed. So, in the first place, lisod biya gyud i-realize a secularization. Kailangan gid mo push para ma-realize ang secularization. Pero mas napalisod siya tungod sa public expression, like sa art, music, or clothing. The first picture, we have the hijab sa mga Muslim women na ginasuot nila. So, like, everyday makita na to na, like, lisod ta og separate sa secularization because makita na to, like, sa ila palang appearance na there is their religion. So, next example, we have ang kanang art ni Leonardo da Vinci, which is the Last Supper. Dili lang pud nato makita sa like sa church, makita pud nato siya sa mga balay-balay. So, na-express na pod ang religion, which maglisod gyud ta og push sa secularization because naa nang secularization. So, next is dance, kanang example. So, again and again, gigamit nila ang dance as expression of religion. So, maglisod gyud tag push sa secularization because there is religion sa mga practices, sa mga clothing, sa art, sa culture na siya. So, maglisod gyud ta og push sa secularization. So, that's it guys. Thank you for listening. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Keep safe guys. Bye.